Hey everyone, welcome to the Torvus podcast. My name is Ari. I'm joined by Alex and Jason once again, and this is a very special episode of the ultimate geeky 80s genre. We're going to be tackling the ninja genre of the 1980s and beyond, because it spawned some other stuff in other decades. Ninja movies were the cat's meow for most kids growing up in the 80s. We remember them. We revisited them. We watched them again. I think we watched probably about 6 ninja movies, and they're absolutely wonderful, ridiculous, horrible, all in the same breath. So we're going to talk about it. I'm sure that if you're watching this, you remember the ninja movies, and it got a lot of us into martial arts. We all wanted to be ninjas. We all wanted to get throwing stars. We all wanted to get swords, put the ninja costumes and all that stuff, which I did have a ninja costume, as a matter of fact. Let's see if I can dig that picture up. So welcome, gents, to the ninja episode. So we had thought, actually, we were just going to tune in and just have our voices and just have like blank spaces as we talk. So, because you can't see the ninjas. But it started really in the 1970s. There was a couple ninja films, but they didn't really get popular until the 1980s. So the first ninja film that kind of had the costumes and the whole thing was in 1980, which was a movie called The Octagon with Chuck Norris. Now, Chuck Norris was trained as a ninja in the film. However, because it's Chuck Norris, he never wore a uniform, didn't use a mask. He didn't use the weapons that the ninjas used or anything like that. So while it did have ninjas, we don't really consider it part of the ninja genre of like kicking off the ninja genre. That title goes to a movie in 1981 called Enter the Ninja. Now, Enter the Ninja has a very famous martial artist in it named Shokusugi. Now, Shokusugi was in a ton of ninja films. He was in Revenge of the Ninja, Ninja 3 Domination, Pray for Death, and they just keep recasting him because he was an actual martial artist. And so he's the main ninja that we kind of remember. So, gentlemen, we're going to start with Enter the Ninja in 1981. And Alex, I think this was a first for you because you had not obviously seen this wonderful work of art. So let us start with your initial impression of that very first ninja movie.
It was hilarious. Watching it with sort of more modern expectations for special effects and with sort of I definitely had a little bit of a higher expectation going in for the martial arts. The opening scene was pretty funny. They're ripping through the jungle. There's this totally white ninja in the middle of the jungle too, which I thought was hilarious.
Camel Man.
And then there was one ninja that was completely dressed in the black classic ninja garb, and the rest of them were all these red ninjas. And I was like, what is happening? And just the martial arts and the scenes were so funny. And it was confusing at first too, the way they just set it up, because he seemed to be like just injuring these other ninjas, and you didn't understand what was going on. And then it turned out that it was his trial. Once you get into it, it really opens itself up for this really wacky American ninja fusion film, and sort of bringing ninjutsu and the ninja into the American eye, I think is what it did. And I think that's sort of what we have to give it a lot of credit for, is how do you merge this very foreign concept with the classic American movies of the 80s. And I think that's what it did.
Yeah. And the problem is it did have a fusion, but it also, since they tried to Americanize it, there's just some horrible things in it too, because they did it and it just takes away from the mystique. Of course, so it's made by Canon Films, which are well known for those really bad action films. I know that, Jason, when you rewatched Enter the Ninja, what did you say? How horrible it was initially?
So the initial thing you're talking about, how bad it is, right from the beginning. They have that opening scene where they have like the black background and the ninja jumping up doing the flying drop kick thing, and it's like not even close to the guy's face. Like, I mean, I'm not Mr. Jump Kick, but I could almost do that kind of. that kind of level goal. It's like a foot away, and then it's like kids doing a really bad fight. So, but at least that lowers your expectations there. But at the time, I remember watching at the time, it didn't set me off as being that bad. But definitely, you're saying about to modern standards of fight choreography, it's pretty shocking. But once you get over that, but there's. And you're talking about like different colored ninjas. I call them like Crayola Ninjas, and I think that kind of comes from a fusion with some earlier movies like the James Bond and You Only Die Twice. They have the sort of ninjas, but they're all kind of in a grayish thing. But they're fighting against these, Chinese or Korean or whatever jumpsuit guys that are in multicolored things. So I think they kind of use those theory about where the multicolored ninjas came from, and even in the Octagon, even though you're saying we're skipping over to Enter the Ninja, they did have some of that there. But at first I was like, oh yeah, they're just not hurting the people and stuff. It's kind of like A-team grenades or whatever, where no one's ever really getting everyone's really getting hurt instead of those kind of bloodbath, big squirting blood kind of things. It was totally the opposite. And then they cut the guy's head off, like the master guy, when they get up there, and they cuts the head off, and like, what the fuck?
It was so fake. Yeah.
So the funny thing is, the actor in that, his name was Franco Nero, and he was the star in it. And Franco was supposed to be, his character Cole was from Texas. However, Nero is Italian, and he could not master the American or Texas accent. So all of his stuff is dubbed. It is not his real voice. So he was not the original choice to play Cole in Enter the Ninja. The original choice was actually going to go to Mike Stone, who was the writer of the film and also the fight choreographer of the film. He did have some martial arts training. So any of the ninja scenes that we see of him fighting is actually Mike Stone fighting, because Nero has zero experience. As you can see, there's a couple like.
So he can't act. He can't fight.
Exactly.
Pretty face. Like
why didn't the other
guy do the rest?
Just his mustache, right? And so like even there's a scene where in the Philippines he's beating up some guys, and he's how this is. She's like right, and it just is so horrible. So that's who was actually in the ninja suit fighting Shokusugi, who also obviously has a ninja background. Or not a ninja, a martial art background. So this particular film is widely considered the movie that popularized ninjutsu during the 80s. It was the second major English language ninja film. The first one obviously being the Octagon, which we talked about. And the odd thing is they call this the trifecta of the ninja films, because it was Enter the Ninja, then it was Revenge of the Ninja, and then Ninja 3 Domination. Now, when you hear about that, you think, well, that makes sense. It's going to be sequential, and it's following the same characters. They are unrelated completely. So the fact that Ninja 3 is called Ninja 3 makes zero sense, because they're not the same characters.
They've got ninjas in it. It's a third movie with ninjas in it. What do you want?
But was that because they were trying to like capitalize on that emerging market? They were just saying like, hey, this is like our third major ninja movie, like because it was hot at the time, or like what was the motive behind it?
I don't know what the motive is, but I think they almost tried to make it. It's like, yeah, it's the third ninja film, but almost like it's the third in the series of. I don't know. It's ridiculous, just like the films are.
Yeah.
And the one thing that I did notice, we're going to get to this in a second, but when you had Enter the Ninja, and then in 1983, Revenge of the Ninja came out, it's almost a carbon copy of the first film. There's fight scenes in the office tower. Both films had it where he invades the office tower, and then there's the guys in bad suits and all that shit. It's hilarious. And it's like, well, they didn't come up with a better concept, so they kind of rehashed it. Also,
again, I think it's to
go ahead.
I think that like the part we were talking about where they do the skyscraper and the business thing, it's to bring it it's to bring that foreign concept back home to the viewer, to say like, could happen at your workplace or whatever, right? Like to make it more modern, like ninjas are anywhere, right? So very cheesy. And later, remind me, and we'll talk about the scene from Enter the Ninja when he's in the office building there. Just hilarious.
So funny. So you'll notice I'm going to, obviously in the lower corner of our podcast here, I'm going to be putting up some clips, some pictures, and some other ridiculous things that we will touch upon shortly here. So an interesting trivia point about this, Jason, is for the first 13 minutes of Enter the Ninja, there is no dialogue. Zero.
That's probably a good thing. Well, given that there's a certain lack of content, like after he cuts off the head of the master guy in that thing, and they go in and he gives him the scroll of wisdom, presenting him the things. There's fuck all of wisdom there. It's like, here's your index card of wisdom. It's like the scroll is the smallest scroll ever. It's like a microfiche scroll. So it's kind of like
a Menkyo Kaidan.
It was just a little thing. Is like, here's all your wisdom. Like, okay, thanks, bud. You know,
I love it.
That was funny.
I love it too when they go and they're celebrating, and it's got all the ninjas sitting around, and they all have really bad mustaches, as Alex pointed out. And then Shokusugi's there, and he doesn't drink, right? And he's like, he's no ninja. It's like, okay. Oh, so good.
So the mustaches must be pretty shocking for you, Alex, except short of Movember, you don't really have the same exposure to mustaches because you didn't grow up in that area. Like it's a weird cultural thing that somehow they fell out of a popular thing. They were huge in the 70s and early 80s.
Yeah, and obviously, like, I can recognize that from a lot of those movies that are popular. But you know, I think it shows that how that at the time that was what the American man looked like. That was the image.
You were manly,
with jeans, right, and a mustache. Like, that's all you needed.
100%.
So instead of having the full beard or something like that, right? Like that was the trend, the style for a man at the time.
Right, because the late 90s, you get the lumberjack guy, or was that early 2000s, where it was a lumberjack guy was the real man.
2000s, yeah.
2000s
grunge.
Oh, grunge, sure, okay. Yeah. I'm mixing up my modern eras.
Yeah.
The other funny thing about that film is, since it was filmed in 1981, there's a lot of politically incorrect stuff that would not be able to fly. From the sexism, from like everything, and the cockfighting. They actually had cockfighting in the film. They took two roosters, put them together, and they're fighting. And when at the end of that film, where they're fighting in the ring, that's actually in the Philippines, but in an actual cock fighting ring.
Really?
Which I actually thought that was good. I mean, not in the fact of the birds dying and stuff like that, but the cockfighting is like the ninjas fighting. You had there's the two of them facing off against each other, like even right from the beginning where they're black ninja, white ninja. It kind of gets in that spy versus spy, which if you're making martial arts videos, you got black and white. That's where you can see which limbs are which limbs. Don't wear the same colors. Anyway, side rant. But it's the cockfighting. It's the two ninjas are cockfighting. So that actually had some kind of literary merit to it, that they were the birds fighting for the entertainment of us watching the cockfight.
Yeah.
I didn't connect that, but that.
I don't think it was that intentional, but that's reaching.
It's also funny too, if you think about the title. So it's very particular why they chose Enter the Ninja, because it's a throwback to 1973 of Enter the Dragon with Bruce Lee. So I think they wanted to kind of be on the tail of that. It's like, oh, well, now it's not a kung fu flick. Now it's the ninjas.
But they're entering the new era of things. Yeah.
Yeah. So
and it's interesting how the ninja thing came around then, because to throw other things in here, gamers are ahead of the curve of modern things. So the ninja craze in movies is in the 80s, right? So these movies that we're covering, this is where ninjas hit the big time. Mm-hmm. But in D&D, in Dragon Magazine, the ninja class comes in the late 70s. So once again, gamers are ahead of
Totally.
setting the
ahead of
trends.
the rest of the world there.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. And I actually know a ton of, this is really weird to say, I know a ton of people who started ninjutsu because they watched ninja films. And and ninjutsu is it's a very interesting art. That's all I'll say on that. It has this mystery around it. And it has several different schools in it, from like fighting schools and weapon schools and things like that. But the main character in it, obviously, was Franco Nero, but also the other guy, Shokusugi. This was his first film. And this is what kind of launched him into stardom. So the thing that he had going for him, obviously, was he had a charisma about him. He knew English. He had martial art background. And obviously, he played the bad guy in this film. But moving forward, he actually transitioned from the bad ninja to the good ninja. And as we'll talk shortly, in the other films, his actual sons are in the film as well.
Oh, those are his real. Okay,
his real sons, yeah. So I think we've already talked about how the fighting is pretty hilarious in it, and if you remember Cole's buddy that he went to war with, and he ends up visiting him in the Philippines on his plantation. He ends up sleeping with his wife, like they're best friends. And then she's like, well, he doesn't give me enough love, and they sleep together, like in the same house.
It's okay, because earlier he told him that he was having issues with his wife and he wasn't able to satisfy her and wasn't interested in doing that anymore. So it was like, oh, don't worry, bro, I got you. Like, it was.
He's got a mustache,
weird.
so
it was so weird. I was like, wait, is this gonna explode later? Like, are they gonna end up fighting? But it was like, no, that's totally cool. It was very strange.
It was so. Oh my god! It was hilarious. And then when Shokusugi is like killing people in it, it's awesome how he's doing it. I love how they show. It's very interesting in ninja films when the ninja has like a throwing star that goes like this, and they zoom on the throwing star, and then you see him go, and he throws it, and then the other guy is like, oh, and it's in his head. And the great thing is they kill him, but. So it's in his eye, and this is what they do. They go, and then they die, right? But it's like it's not an instant kill, which maybe it should be, but it isn't.
It's like either it went deep enough and got his brain and he's dead, or it just wrecked his eye and he's going to be bleeding and he's not going to die, right? Like, it's either mortal
or
their
hand. You can go for the hand and stop the weapon and stuff too. So about throwing stars, before I forget, did you guys have this in your school where we had metal shop and wood shop, and wood shop part of it was plastics? Yeah. So was there a component of throwing
star making? Oh yeah.
Who didn't make one?
Yeah, we got it. We got in a lot of trouble, but we all made one for sure. Definitely.
Yeah.
So
did you make them, Jay? Throwing stars?
I don't have. I wish I still had one. I've still got my ice scraper I made out of plastics in wood shop, but I don't have any of the stars. But people made them all different kinds, right? You had anyway, you get like the sheet metal ones, you get the plastic ones, you get the.
While we're still on the topic of the bullshit martial arts in the movie, one of the scenes I was like, are you freaking kidding me? Is where he takes one of the tonfas. Holds it by the end, so the handle's sticking up. He sneaks up behind a guy, sticks it between his legs, whacks him in the sack, and then pulls him backwards with it. I was like, who came up with this? Like this? Oh, it was unbelievable.
I remember that. But in one of the later movies, I don't remember which one it is right now, but they upped that and they did a double one. They had the guy get two guys with them and pulled them in. That was one of the later. I don't know if it was the second one or third one, but again, it was one of
Revenge. Those. But that's what they rehashed a couple even fight scenes, which was really funny.
Yeah.
And you know what's funny? At the beginning of the film, we're talking about the Red Ninjas. So not only did Shokusugi play the Black Ninja, he actually played one of the Red Ninjas at the beginning of the film. And you can tell because there's a scene where they're showing him and they scan by his face and he's got the distinct eyeliner that he wears. And they're like, oh, it's this Shokusugi.
Oh,
I
that's
didn't
funny.
notice
Yeah.
that. Didn't pay enough attention. Yeah.
Yeah, so it's so good. And again, it's very funny that Franco Nero, who's Italian, played an American ninja. And Canon actually produced American Ninja with Michael Dudikoff some years later, which became very popular and it did really well at the box office. And I think that spanned 4 or 5 other sequels from it. So pretty good. This film was actually a box office hit in 1981. So they loved it. They gobbled that up. So I don't know. Enter the Ninja. It's a good introduction to ninja movies. It's absolutely horrible. It was worth watching for the laugh factor, in my personal opinion. I don't know. What else can we say about this film that if you haven't seen it, that people must see or watch?
When they're like imparting the knowledge and the wisdom, and they're sitting there talking about even what it means to like be a ninja and the foundations of ninjutsu, and they're doing the little like the hand symbol shadow things. I was like,
Yeah.
What does this? It would be like if you asked like a 14-year-old kid from America, like, what do you think ninjas do? They're like, oh, they harness their power or something.
Yeah.
It was unbelievable.
Yeah, they had the hand things, and pretty much, I think every one of the movies had ninja hand sign things.
So if you're unfamiliar with the hand sign, it's the Kujikiri is what it's called, and it's the 9 symbols that the ninjas do.
That's what.
And so they have. I'm going to read it from the list.
Is it a cutting? Is it a cutting kiri or some other kind of?
It is.
Never mind. That's not relevant.
They have Rin, strength of mind and body; Pyo, direction of energy; To, harmony of the universe; Sha, healing oneself and others; Kai, premonition of danger; Jin, knowing the thoughts of others; Retsu, mastery of time and space; Zai, control of the elements; and Zen, enlightenment.
Yeah.
That's all you need to be a ninja. You just you do all the things, and then you're good, right? So
it's kind of like Kung Fu Hustle. You find the comic book, but it's going to have the hand signs in it, and then you learn them, and you're a ninja or something.
Exactly.
Yeah. So Enter the Ninja, we highly suggest that you watch that. Since it did such a great thing at the box office, Canon Films says, we're going to produce another one. We're bringing back Shokusugi, the Man, which we're going to talk about more in a moment. And Revenge of the Ninja came out in 1983, which, again, is kind of a rehash of Enter the Ninja. However, this time Shokusugi is the good guy. So let's talk about how Revenge of the Ninja works. So typical revenge film, isn't it, Alex?
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah. So he essentially, they come to America. The Japanese family, the producers of it actually did a lot of rewrites on these because they did not like the film. They thought it was boring. So there's a whole bunch of rewrites that happened. One of the things about Revenge of the Ninja, which is really funny, is it was originally filmed in LA. But the problem is they couldn't get the necessary permits for fire permits, police permits, and all this stuff. So they moved the entire production to Utah, where there wasn't any permit stuff, and they filmed it there.
But there's no rules.
Which there's very little rules in 1983, so they could film it there, and then they had that big fight scene on top of the building with the ninja with the silver mask and the white guy, of course.
Oh yeah, the silver mask. Yeah, that was great. Sort of Destro meets Snake Eyes.
Yeah.
Anyway, that sort of not chronologically, but
the other cool thing is Shokusugi, so the Japanese guy, he actually personally crafted some of the weapons for the film.
Really?
Yeah. Because the Americans had zero idea. They're like, oh, what are ninja weapons? And he's like, okay, well, I'll make these. So he actually made several of the weapons. And because he's really good if you watch him.
Because in Pray for Death, they had him making weapons. So
yes. Yeah, right.
Because he only took the helmet with the throwing star in it. Didn't take the swords and stuff, right?
Yeah.
Wasn't that the one where he didn't take those others? The the crazy master guy.
Yeah.
Anyway, that's getting ahead of things.
But the other thing is, so when you start seeing the fight scenes in this particular movie, it's much better because Shokusugi is the guy. But the funny thing is they actually they dramatically reduced the level of violence in this film, because in order to get an 18 rating around the world and not an X rating, they actually had to lower the standard. So there was quite a bit more violence and blood and guts in this, but they cut it out of the film.
Yeah, because you want to be popular and not just one of those, because which theaters are you allowed to be shown in and how many people,
Back when people cared about that kind of stuff, now you can just go on Netflix and go on the kids setting and see just people getting eviscerated.
Yeah, right.
Well, it's like comics with like the Comics Code Authority and stuff. You look at some of the things that weren't allowed to be shown versus later.
But when you look at shitty films like this that are so amazing, so Revenge of the Ninja was filmed in 48 days, which is really quick. It was filmed on a budget of $700,000.
Wow.
Yeah. So there you go. I don't know how much it made, but kind of ridiculous.
Oh, clearly enough to keep making them. So
yeah. And one of the things in this film is they have the flamethrowers from the ninjas.
Oh yeah, yeah. You don't have to be a Mandalorian to have fucking hand flamethrowers. Bring those in. Yeah.
So that was very interesting. And was this also the one where he had the caltrops in his mouth and he spit it on the guy's face? I thought it was, again, is he wandering around the office with all these caltrops, and he blows them with such force that it goes into this guy's face, like, I don't know, there's like a dozen of them, and enough for him to go, oh! And then he throws him against the wall. The other guy comes running down the stairs with his gun. He kicks the gun, and then he ends up shooting the guy with the caltrops in his face. Hilarious. So one of my favorite scenes in ninja films of all time.
Yeah, that's super cheesy.
Yeah.
But
you can see that he actually does most of the stunts himself in this film because he is a martial artist. And it really makes a difference when the person playing the role actually has a background, because a lot of times you'll see the actor like Nero in the first film that they cut away and you can tell it's not the same guy. And so it was a nice change, I think, to almost like the first action film. I think Jason you and I were talking about this off camera last time, but action films were the muscly guys oiled up with the guns and going in guns a-blazing. This was like, okay, well, martial arts is a totally different thing where no guns are involved, and it is highlighting the martial skill. So just a nice little change, I think.
Yeah, and I think it also speaks to the fact when you have an actor who has no training, it's like, sure, they've sat there on set and had their stunt choreographers tell them how to do it. But it's exactly like your first, depending on the martial art and the move you're doing, the first little while when you're learning martial arts is like, it's like learning how to swim. It's like learning, you can go over it and you can walk someone through it, but if you throw them in the ocean, like, they're going to fucking drown. They're going to look, or if they do swim, it's going to look like shit and they're going to be struggling. And that sort of shows that when you have somebody who's studied this and who understands the movement and the purpose behind the movement, it makes for a much, much better film overall, right? That's why, like, Jackie Chan, I know this is getting way off the ninja stuff, but in terms of just even stuntman stuff, not even on the level of the martial arts, just his martial art training allowed him to be such an incredible stuntman, right? And I think that's all it takes is it's like watching a professional dancer versus, like, Dancing with the Stars. You can fucking, like, walk somebody through it and they can move their left foot, right foot here, do that kind of thing. But until you get the flow and the actual, until you've done it many, many, many times and the muscle memory smooths it out, it shows. And I don't know if it's also just because we all do martial arts and we can see the flaws in what we're watching in terms of the martial aspect, but yeah, I gotta just say, like, it was really refreshing to see some of the martial arts start to come together as they went on in the series, if you will.
So, what is it about? Let me ask both of you guys this question. What is it about ninja films that attracts young men? I guess because that's really that was who they were gearing it towards in the '80s. So, Jason, what is it about the films when you watched them originally that you liked?
Well, ninjas were cool because they had like the kind of mystery thing, but they were also kind of like Swiss Army knife kind of guys because they had all different kinds of things. They weren't just bam pow. They had they could do their martial arts fighting. They had a bunch of cool little tools, so it was kind of not totally James Bondy, but you had like all those different things, whether it's the caltrops, the throwing stars, the tiger claw climby things, the bow, like the blowgun, whatever it is. They got like a variety of different cool gadgets that they did. And so they had skills and they had the mystery. If it's, so it was just kind of an interesting mixture of things that was like, it wasn't just one thing. It was like, oh, that's cool. Ooh, that's cool. That's cool. There was a whole bunch of things that you could kind of get on board with.
How about you, Alex?
I think it's just the sort of the assassin aspect, the death from the shadows kind of. And again, for me, obviously not being a part of that 80s craze of ninjas. For me, it was more of the video game aspect that I started getting introduced to the whole ninja thing, and like a lot of the Mortal Kombat type stuff was some of my first memories of ninja type fighting, like Scorpion and stuff like that, right? Using I can't remember the name of the weapon, but like the knife on the end of a chain type thing. The diversity of the weapons too, like Jason talks about, is you're just going to see some crazy shit and people are going to die in some crazy ways. And that to me was the shock and awe value is what kind of drew me into the ninja. And then what was cool is ninjas don't fight fair. So when you pit them against other warriors or other martial artists, they kind of always have an option because, they'll just kill you in your sleep. And you're like, fuck, yeah, that does beat what I was training, right? Or, or they'll poison you, or they can do, there's no rules for ninjas, really, if you really expand on the mythos of everything. And I remember, did you guys ever watch that series on the Spike network, Deadliest Warrior?
Deadliest Warrior, yeah.
Oh yeah.
And they pitted the ninjas against the Spartans. And I think 300 had already come out at that point. So I was pretty like pro Spartan, and I was pretty pissed off that the Spartan lost. But again, like that's the thing, is ninjas can beat anybody, man, because they cheat and they'll kill you in your sleep and they'll blow poison powder in your face and they'll come up with some magic bullshit to beat you. Right. And that to me, I think, was the ultimate draw of the ninja was it doesn't matter. You're dead already kind of thing.
I think that's one of the reasons.
No, you can't kill a ninja because
only a ninja can kill a ninja.
Ninja can kill a ninja.
Right. That's actually a line from one of the movies. So for
Ninja 3. What I was going with it.
Yeah. But I like, Alex is right. It's that we're so used to those kind of typical action heroes where it's, force against force. And then now we have like the assassin coming in. It's like, well, I'm actually going to kill you from far away and I'm going to do this and I'm going to poison you. And it's like, oh shit, like that makes sense. Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, revenge.
If you're fighting fair, you're doing it wrong.
Yeah.
It's also like, it's what makes a Swiss Army knife cool. You're like, oh, it's a little fucking fork. Oh, it's a knife. Oh, it's a corkscrew too. It's like, this is the handiest fucking thing. It does it all, right? But like, when you really need a fucking tool, trust me, as a tradesman, you're not going to bust out the goddamn Swiss Army knife, because that thing is like only good when you have no other tools around, right? Like, and we're not going to get too into the ninjutsu thing. We know too many ninjas to talk bad about ninjutsu, but that's just kind of my opinion on it from the martial standpoint.
Well, we're going to move on to Ninja 3 Domination, which is my favorite of these three films. And the reason is it is one of the most ridiculous films that I have watched from the 80s genre, and that's why I love it. It is fantastically horrible. And Jason and I agree, and I think Alex would agree. It is so bad that it's like watching a train wreck, and you're just like, I gotta watch what's going to happen. So
it racks over the so bad into the good era. It's not double cheese; it's like quadruple cheesy.
So I'm going to give you, if you've not seen Ninja 3 Domination, I'm going to give you a slight synopsis. Spoiler alert, here it comes.
Don't wreck the plot.
Okay, well, here's the plot in 1 minute or less. Ninja comes onto the scene, assassinates some guy. He ends up getting tracked down by police officers who shoot him, and eventually...
An endless army of police officers. Yeah, like I don't know what city has that many cops in it.
So they end up shooting him. This ninja ends up killing dozens of cops in the most absurd manner. They shoot him like 400 times. He ends up struggling. He ends up finding this female who is this woman who is a hydro worker. She's up a pole, and basically he possesses her with his spirit, and then she knows all of his knowledge and becomes the ninja. And she's possessed. She now is on this revenge kick to go after all the cops that end up killing him for killing that other guy.
Just the bad cops, not all the cops.
There's the bad cops. Yes, the bad cops. And then at the end, what happens is Shokusugi comes on the scene, and he talks to her, and she's like, you got to get him out of me, blah, blah, blah. And then he's like, only a ninja can kill a ninja, and that type of thing. So they perform this hilarious ceremony where she's floating in the air. The spirit comes out.
Exorcism.
It's exorcism thing that happens. James Hong is the guy who plays Lo Pan in Big Trouble in Little China, by the way. He's the guy who's doing the whole spirit thing. He happens to be Chinese. He's not Japanese. I love it how they do the whole, if they look Asian, I guess they're all going to be Japanese things. So that's all fucked up.
Back then it was like whatever, people didn't know.
Yeah. And then, so they take the spirit of the ninja and they put it back into the body of the ninja because he was on ice. And then the final scene is Shokusugi and him fighting together, and that's the plot.
However, ninja versus zombie ninja. That's awesome.
Yes. And however, within that ridiculousness, there is so much cheese. It's
right incredible. From the beginning.
So I'm going to ask you guys some questions, and we're going to throw this out here. But viewers, please watch Ninja 3 Domination. It's so bad. This movie was shot in 9 weeks, and you can see that it was rushed. Shokusugi, who plays the good ninja who comes to save the day, has an eye patch. Shokusugi came up with that brilliant idea. He's like, I need to have an eye patch. It will make me look more official. So he put an eye patch on him. So he's a pirate ninja, which was amazing.
It's like someone making their own character. It's awesome.
Yeah. And
it's like someone would do that on their character sheet. They would be like, okay, and then draw on the eye patch.
Very D&D, yeah.
So my favorite scene from the beginning of the few minutes of that film is he's on a golf course and he's assassinating whatever his target is. And one of these henchmen come and they point the revolver at the ninja, and the ninja pulls up his blowgun. And we've talked about it about 4 times on the Torvus podcast. And he goes, whew, and the blow dart goes all the way into the gun, and the gun explodes in the guy's hand.
That is awesome.
Most ridiculous. I cannot wait to put it down. Yes, right down there.
Yeah.
Oh man.
Yeah, you got to golf clap that one out. That is just fucking fantabulous.
And so guys, do you remember when the ninja, after the cops track him down, they surround him, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And they're shooting him. So let me say that again.
They're completely
around him and start shooting at him.
It's cool. Bullets only go 5 feet.
Everything.
Everything. Shotguns, revolvers, M16s, and there's something called crossfire.
Crossfire. No.
Which they don't talk about. And you would have killed each other. It's so awesome.
But even right from the beginning, it's like it's not just the powers, but he takes a golf ball, crushes the golf ball in his hands, got that thing, and then climbs up on the helicopter and he's got the throwing star with the foot. That was fucking awesome too.
That was a good one. Yeah, he puts it between his tabby. Yeah.
Yeah. Because like why do you have that foot thing on the tap depths of the little boot sock thing? And it's got it's like a mitten but for feet, and so then you've got like the toe thumb, and then you're able to get it and throws a star with his foot. I can't imitate that because I'm not that good, but that was pretty cool too.
So the funny thing is, after he kills the pilot with the throwing star and he jumps off the helicopter into the pool, into the lake in the golf course, the helicopter goes down. And they used to do this all the time in action films when they didn't have budget. The helicopter would go below, it would go, it'd spin, and then it would fall behind a mountainside, and then they would explode some gasoline, and it would come up, so they didn't have to show the actual thing exploding.
Helicopters are expensive, man. If you're going to make a low-budget movie, you can't just blow up helicopters. There's no CGI to do that shit.
Yeah.
Cars, you can blow up cars all day long, and a car, just the slightest little scratch and they explode, because that's how cars do things.
Yeah. The producers of the film actually wanted to make Lucinda Dickey the female lead. They wanted to make her the next female action star for Canon during the 1980s. However, this film bombed so incredibly badly that she disappeared.
Oh, man.
Yeah.
It's too bad.
Yeah. So, hey, Alex, what are some of your fond memories from Ninja 3 Domination? What jumps out at you when you were watching this?
Well, I mean, I just think the whole like spirit possession part of it was, because for me, like I said, later with the video game aspect, the whole mysticism and ninjas really meshed. So that's always been like something that the mythos of the ninja has incorporated for me. It wasn't like the samurai where it was more about the steel and the skill. It was more about the surprise and the unknown, and that to me, the part where when he puts his soul into her was just like, I was watching it, I was like, is this for real? Like this is some crazy shit. I can't believe that they even came up with that as an option. I was like, this is so fucking weird.
With the fog machine and the wind and
the wind,
levitating sword.
Oh. It was like watching like Weird Science when they bring her in and yeah. The other funny thing about this, there's a ton.
Ghostbusters.
But, the eye patch that Shokusugi used is actually a tsuba, which is the guard on a sword. And he actually, that's what the eye patch is. So if you look closely, it's not an actual eye patch, it's a tsuba. The other,
you don't have to look that closely, it's really obvious.
Yeah. And then the other, that film was so ridiculous because it was a mishmash of everything. And one of the best scenes at the end is when the two ninjas are fighting and the zombie ninja ends up spinning around in a circle and digs himself into a hole. Do you remember that? Tasmanian hole digging.
Drill.
Yeah. The drill. And I'm like, oh, it's impressive what this guy can do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And honestly, it's like a 4-year-old. It's like a 4 or 5-year-old playing with action figures in the sandbox. Like some of the stuff is just like, what the fuck were these guys on when they came up with this? It was incredible.
God, yeah. And so Lucinda Dickey, who played the female, she was given 1 week notice that she was going to be in the film. They trained her for 1 week in martial arts to do martial arts stuff. So she had no time to prepare whatsoever. There's a scene where she is fighting the guys from the gym. And in the
alley, because the guys are trying to rape the other girl in the alley or side thing. Yeah, she comes in and says no, and then they turn on her, and then she fucks them up. Yeah,
yeah, and then but there's one thing where she basically grabs onto a pole and then pulls herself up and spins backwards, and then she's like, "Hiya!" But she had so much trouble kind of lifting herself up and rolling. It looks so funny. And then she kicks everyone's ass. Again, Jason pointing out like the punches and kicks were so far away from their faces. She wanted to do her own stunts in this film, and the producers are like, no.
But in a way, it's not as egregious because she's possessed by this guy. She has no business knowing these skills. So anything that doesn't look quite right is kind of okay. It's sort of forgivable because she's not really doing it. She's not really able. So you've kind of got it built in out with the cheesiness.
The ninja's like, yeah, this person doesn't know how to do these moves. The muscles don't know how to move that way.
Right.
But it's the spirit of the ninja inside that's actually doing the things that you can't see. So it's like you can no prize that shit.
Okay, so the last film of the kind of ninja genre with Shokusugi we're going to talk about is Pray for Death, which came out in 1985. So I'm going to read you the plot if you're unaware. The plot follows a retired ninja warrior now married to an American woman. They move to Los Angeles at his wife's request in order to bring a new life for their two sons. Shortly thereafter, he is mistakenly drawn into a protracted conflict with an LA crime boss. Where have we seen this before? And his henchmen, his vicious henchmen. Now he's forced by a series of brutal circumstances, to come out of retirement and bring the criminals to justice. So this is
because you cannot escape your own shadow.
You can't. And so
that's the whole point of the movie.
And the great thing about this is, since he's a retired ninja, isn't this the one where he tapes a sword and he says he's never going to open it again, right? Was it that the one? Can't remember. But he does make his own weapons in this. He actually forges his own...
he forges his own sword, yeah.
And he has a helmet, which is amazing because it has a shuriken right here, which he uses in the film. He takes it out and he throws it.
As soon as you see him get that helmet, you're like, you know that thing's going to bust that out later at a key point.
I'm going to fast forward right to the end. There's the best kill scene in this. They're fighting in a like a lumberyard thing, and he's fighting the criminal mastermind or whatever, and he ends up
like a sawmill.
The sawmill. He ends up taking his hand and he ends up pinning it down to the piece of wood, and the big saw is going on, and he's moving towards the saw, and he can't get out, and he's swearing, and he basically gets cut in half by this saw. And I'm just like, ooh, that's a good way to go.
Classic.
But the saw, he used the star out of the helm to throw into the on-off button of the saw to turn it off, and then took it out, right? To get the saw going again to kill the guy, right?
Yeah. Apparently, the reception for this film, it says the film was unfavorably viewed in some film critics. However, USA Today said, praised Shokusugi, stating that Shokusugi is the hottest kick since Chuck Norris and Bruce Lee. And Briggs, praising Kasugi, said, is the best kung fu man since Bruce Lee.
Briggs? Billy Bob Briggs?
No, it just says Briggs.
Okay.
Joe Bob Briggs. That's
Joe Bob Briggs. Yeah, okay.
Movie reviewer.
Yeah, famous movie. Okay.
Yeah. And Shokusugi, by the way, his name was Akira Saito in the film. It's so bad. His sons Kane and Shane Kasugi are both in the film as well. It's funny, by the time you get to Pray for Death, you're kind of, because I watched these over consecutively, like over 2 days, and it's kind of like, okay, here we go again. Oh, I've seen this film before, right? And
and they all start kind of fusing together, and that's like, oh, like which ninja kill scene was that? And then it's like you got to remember the costumes that kind of draw it together. But
but then that's the whole thing, is that ninjas become a meme. It blends into one, and then you get the unity of what is a ninja. These are the things where ninjas were being built, like the modern conception of ninja. This is where it's coming from, and then it just becomes a conglomeration in your mind years later. You don't remember where it came from. It's just these are the origins.
And honestly, I think that's sort of the best power to the ninja is the anonymity. It's like the Batman mantle that just keeps getting passed down. Whenever one ninja pulls off cool shit, it just kind of gets dubbed, that was a ninja killer, that was a ninja cool shit thing. Yeah. And then it just keeps going, and like ninjas can run on water, ninjas can do all this shit because one guy did some crazy thing one time, and it just keeps building on
it's
that.
A myth throughout this. Pray for Death sucked ass. This was horrible. I'm not generally pay attention to movie music the same way, but this was god awful horrible music compared to Ninja 3 Domination, which had like 80s shit. So
bad. But these ninja movies actually kicked off the American Ninja movie, which came out in '85. So here's the funny thing: I'm looking at it now. The title of the film is American Ninja, correct?
Yeah,
and it's a great title.
However, it looks like so it is known as American Warrior. Also, so I'm looking up some of the trivia on this, and it's changed. It's the same film, but it's referred to as American Warrior. So I don't know if that was the working title or not.
Oh, I don't know. American Ninja is a perfect title for it, though. It's very American, very ninja. American Ninja. What do you want?
And the funny thing is this film in 1985 originally was going to be casting Chuck Norris, and Chuck Norris did not want to do it because he said, if I'm going to be in a film, I don't want my face hidden. I don't want to wear a mask.
Of course.
That's what he did to Octagon, right?
Exactly, right?
Yeah.
So this
classic
film had
fucking Mando actor syndrome.
Oh, right.
Can't take off your helmet, but we're going to find ways for you to fucking do it so that you can chill out.
Yeah. So American Ninja is actually not too bad. It's kind of a combination of Rambo and a ninja film. And
yeah, it was really weird. It was very like Vietnam, like soldier style of hoorah, but then throw in ninja in there with amnesia to cover the skills. It was
it's mid 80s America, right? Like this is like, you've got Rambo, you've got the previous ninja movies and Stripes. You know, it's just kind of all chucked in there into a thing. This is before the dark, kinds of things of the war things that were there, but very, very American Ninja.
So, but American Ninja, this is a very interesting film. So it had some really cool things happen in it. So Michael Dudikoff had no martial art experience. They used him for his physique and because of his look. Very common. So again, he had no martial arts training. However, apparently learned quickly during production and eventually earned his black belt. So he did.
Oh.
Now, the funny thing about it is, do you remember his sidekick that was in the film, the black guy who ends up...
Oh, the buff black guy.
Yeah. So that is Steve James, and he had martial art background. And I think had black belts and stuff like that. So he was pretty proficient. So it says that he knew that Dudikoff didn't have any martial art experience, and apparently Dudikoff was very reluctant in showing up, and because he knew that this guy knew martial arts, and so they had a argument and fight. They didn't get along until midway through the production of the film. Because apparently James, he said, even requested that in the final fight scenes of the film that Dudikoff was kept far away from him to avoid any further problems. However, it wasn't until the mid-filming of American Ninja that they settled their differences. So I guess he resented him not having a martial skill and starring in the film.
Yeah, he's probably like, hey, stop sucking and know your shit.
Yeah.
It is frustrating. It is frustrating when someone like that was the whole, we're going to get really off track here, but that was my fucking thing with Iron Fist. Like, I don't really give a shit who you cast, but you should cast somebody that knows some fucking martial arts. Like, this is ridiculous.
Yeah, that was so brutal. Like, it was so brutal to watch.
It was painful.
Yeah. Second season got better, but it still was.
Yeah.
Could have been so much better. Yeah.
Yeah, not good.
We expect a lot more from martial arts things now than we did back then.
Well, and that's like, honestly, like John Wick, and you see Keanu Reeves and his devotion and dedication to his shooting and those sort of techniques. Yeah. That's what made the fucking movie, man. It was just some crazy like cult. It wasn't a big movie when it came out. It wasn't this crazy huge release. It just, people loved it because it kicked ass. Like, and that's something that Keanu Reeves brought to the table after, years and years as being an action star, but it does show, and I think that filmmakers need to start looking more towards giving like stuntmen and martial artists more of an opportunity to grow into that acting role, and less giving actors an opportunity to grow into the stuntman and martial artist role. Like, fuck.
Yeah, the funny thing about also the American Ninja had a budget of $1 million.
Wow.
And it made a box office of 10 million back in 1985. So
Cha-ching.
it really actually did quite well, apparently.
The branding, though, right? Like, and I 100% can see that. It's very like hoorah. It's very like soldier meets ninja.
Yeah, but the thing is if you look at Rotten Tomatoes, it has an approval rating of 0%.
Because it's not a good movie, like, but it's sold. I think the concept sold, the idea sold. It was catchy enough that people at the time would go and see it.
Yeah, man. So, who was the? Let's see if I can find it here. Casting. What is his name? Oh yeah, Tadashi Yamashita, Black Star Ninja. Do you remember him in this film? He was essentially the ninja with the black tattoo star here.
Big evil ninja, yeah.
Yeah. So he is
the brothers or whatever kind of thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, he is a very well-known and respected martial artist from Japan. Super legit. Karate, Kabuto are his main things. He's a 10th degree black belt in Kobayashi Shorin-ryu Karate. He's a 10th degree black belt in Kobudo as well. Like the guy's, he's a master now, right? And they used him because of his martial skill. So if you watch him in this film, legit martial artist, 100% movement, everything about it, and so really quite cool.
Before we close it up here, I want to ask you guys what your top ninja weapons are in the movies that you've seen, not necessarily limited to the 80s ones, but just the ridiculous sort of ways that ninjas will assassinate people. What are some of your coolest, your top 3 each of ninja weapons?
Well, Jay,
blowgun. That blowgun thing with the whether it was a gun or that in the neck where people go down. That's definitely.
And the blowgun's handy because you can hide in a pond and use it to breathe in the reeds.
And you can use it to breathe, so you can breathe in, but then you can still breathe out and shoot it at somebody without breathing it in there.
Exactly.
There's a no prize way to solve that, but anyway.
Shurikens have to be in there. Throwing stars 100%. And that's the quintessential ninja thing. They also have ninja spikes. They're basically long nails which they throw, which are shuriken as well. Essentially, love that.
You got the chick ninjas with the hairpin things, right?
Oh,
climbing claws, very cool.
Tiger
love
claw.
that. I think that the ninja sword, the ninja toe.
Ninja toe.
Not a katana. It's a much different weapon. I like that. It's a straighter sword. I really think that's very cool.
Do you know the history behind that and the samurai?
You mean the difference between the two?
Like the length thing?
Why it became such a popular weapon for defeating samurai?
Do
you have an answer for this?
Yes.
Is this for the drawing thing?
Yes, Jason knows. Jason can elaborate.
Just because it's a shorter sword to draw from?
So, and the samurai would have these duels where they would see who could draw their sword faster, and they would be within striking distance of each other, sword sheathed, and basically first person to draw their sword would cut the other person, well, almost in half, right?
Right.
So the ninjas, they would cheat, and they would have a long sheath with a shorter, straighter blade in it, so you could physically pull it out and you could slide forward like a quarter step.
It like magnifies your
range.
speed, right? Because if you've only got to pull it out this far and the other guy's got to pull it out that far and you're the same speed, yours clears first, so you're able to start cutting.
So they would challenge the samurai in this honor-bound type duel setting and then cheat the fuck out of it and kill them.
Love it.
Yeah. So very, very cool weapon for sure. Jason, do you have any more?
Well, it's not a ninja weapon. I mean, I was going to say that thing about the sword with the length thing, so that's why that was going to be my other one. But it's not really a ninja weapon, and it comes from a Korean villain in something, but it still has to be one of those great weapons, because it's like the throwing star, but even better than the throwing star is a throwing hat.
A throwing what?
Throwing hat.
James Bond.
Odd job.
Oh, from James Bond.
Yeah.
Yes.
Because that's like even though it's kind of before, it's like a super throwing star, and like the throwing stars are the quintessential. Like if you like someone gets a throwing star and like, where's the ninjas, right? So that's definitely the thing. But this is like, it's like it has the spirit of the ninjas of like the domination about just churning it up and making it more cheesy, and it's like a bigger, badder version of things. I guess you could go all Xena on things too if you wanted to, but the same kind of thing. The throwing stars have a big influence on the stuff. Also, there's like the powder, that was gonna be one of mine. So one of my favorite is there's a smoke bomb thing, but there's also the blindy powder thing, right?
And so the way they would make that is they would take chicken eggs, Easter egg the fuck out of them. So you poke a hole in one end and you poke a hole in the other, and you blow out the stuff on the inside, and then you take a combination of pepper and glass. They had various things they would use, but essentially fine powders with glass, and put it back in the egg, and then just patch up the holes with dried mud or something like that. And then you could carry these eggs, and then all you would have to do is crush the egg, and then you have an instant handful of blinding powder or burning, whatever it is, that you could dispense onto your opponent.
Metal filings, whatever happens to be in it that's really irritating.
That's a cool weapon, actually. It's the whole like Metsubushi thing, right? It's like in your eyes and you can't see. I mean, that's distraction and then attack. I think we also have to throw in, Alex, the caltrops. It's such an awesome thing. If you play D&D or have ever played D&D, caltrops should be part of your weapon. It should be in a pouch. They're amazing to use. So caltrops, 100%, really, really good. The other one,
especially if you got a big mouth.
The other one that we need to add in, and I don't know if it's a ninja thing, but Jason, maybe you can remind me when Oriental Adventures came out, but there's a weapon which 85. Is called a sodigurami, which is basically called a sleeve catcher or a man catcher. Do you remember this?
Soda sleeve.
Gurami's entanglement.
So yeah, that makes sense.
Wasn't that part of Oriental Adventures? As part of
I remember the man catchers of like being a Kuatoa thing because they've got the big long pole arm ones.
Yeah. So I really like that film. I don't think it's a ninjutsu necessarily weapon, but although I have seen a video. And I'm going to put it down. I'm sorry, ninjas. I'm going to put it down. And it's a ninja. It's these guys practicing ninjutsu. And it's a large piece of wood, probably about that thick. It looks like a small telephone pole. And they have it on their back. And they're like, ah. And they put it. It's so awesome. I got to put it in down in the corner because it's so good.
You got to put that in. Yeah.
Yeah. So
I think for me, in the movie Ninja Assassin, they reveal a Darth Maul type katana, which just blew my mind. It was like a switch-bladed katana. So the hilt was slightly longer than your average hilt. And inside of it were these spring-loaded blades that would shoot out. So he was swapping. So he would be fighting, and it would almost look like the blade was just swapping from one end to the other. But then he ended up fighting him using both sides of it at one point, too. I don't know if that's real. That's probably just a made up movie thing. But that one,
what makes for a cool movie thing then?
Yeah, and especially if you're watching that scene, and I was like, oh my god, this is so cool. What's happening? Very like Darth Maul too, right? Like, double-sided. Anything double-sided, that goes up there. And then of course, just the knife on the chain. I've looked up the name here. I'm going to butcher it. They say it is a Kyoketsu Shoge, Shoge. Kyoketsu Shoge.
You know you're gonna have some like ninjutsu guys that are just losing their shit right now.
I know.
Oh my god! How do you not know?
But essentially, think like Scorpion from Mortal Kombat throws the knife into him and pulls the chain back. Get over here, and you can whip it around and it very ninja. Like if you're holding a sword, the guys are able to throw the knife, wing it around your sword, and slash your face off. Right? Like if a guy comes at me with that, I'm like fucking you. I'm fucked. Like
with like the weight on one end and then the hook on the other end.
What was it?
Nothing but a hook, but they've got blades. They've got all kinds of different variations. But yeah.
But they had also remember the kama, which was the stick with the sword on the end, and it was just like that. But they also had a chain on it, so they could use it. Yeah,
totally. Yeah. And there's a bunch of different like bladed weapon type ones, but anything with a chain is like. Even nunchucks is like fucking,
especially in 3rd edition. But anyway,
yeah.
Well,
there you know,
gentlemen, we talked about the ninjas. It brought back a lot of memories. Maybe I will watch the ninja films in another 25, 30 years again. But it was fun. I have to say, it was fun.
It was fun, and you don't really know who ninjas are because. I have to say that I have someone that I know that does have ninja abilities that on the surface is not trained in ninjutsu, but they have the triple ninja backflip ability. They can blend into bushes, dodge baseball bats in alley fights. You wouldn't know that they're ninja. I don't want to give away their identity. I know they do watch this show, but they do have those secret ninja powers that they can pull off. So,
and I have to say that I actually know 2 practitioners of ninjutsu, and they're both tough motherfuckers. I would go to battle with them any day. But the difference between those 2 guys and the bullshit that you see out there is they were martial artists, and they realized, I think they changed their ninjutsu and their martial stuff, and they have some other martial art backgrounds as well, but they were tough dudes. I bounced with them for a long time. So did you, Jay.
Yep.
So they're good dudes, and I love both of them very much. So I know we kind of
you can laugh at the ninja movies, but
don't laugh at a ninja.
Don't laugh at a ninja. So everyone who joined the Torvus podcast for today, thanks very much. We really enjoyed doing this one. Super fun. So until next time, everyone.
We'll have something else for you next time.
Yeah.
But does anybody really know what we'll have next time? How could they know? How could they know?
He's talking about the whispering in one of the films. Very fun. So anyway, until then, keep on geeking on.
Go on, geeking on.